Even if you didn't do it right, you can still be forgiven. You can still move forward.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are fueling innovation in emerging markets across the country. I'm here with my co-host, Leanne Buchanan.
Hello, everybody.
And I'm really happy to have a very dear friend, Mr. Kenny DeShields.
Hey.
So, Kenny, you are an artist in so many senses of the word. And we're going to talk a little bit about how your art manifests in your life. But before, we want to talk about the source of that, and that's who are you?
Yeah.
And I like to start off by asking, what is your superpower, and how and when did you first discover it?
Oh, I love that question. So I'm originally from Moss Point, Mississippi. I was born to a musical, creative, Jesus-loving family, and it's been infused in me from birth about having high morals and reaching for the stars and doing what you were created to do. And so I think from an early age on, I knew that music was what I was supposed to do. I tried everything. My dad is a super athlete, and I sucked at football, basketball, baseball, and it was literally like watching you just wanted to cringe every time you saw me go up to the bat or do any of that stuff. And I prayed. I was like, what am I supposed to do? And my first piano teacher was the one that I think that really brought that out of me. Like she showed me that like you could be young and that you could know jazz and classical and gospel and soul and just all of these things. And it's like now, many years later, it's just like I'm seeing that come alive in me, and that's coming alive in my music. So I feel like the heart of love is my superpower, because like I feel like I have been loved a lot, and I've experienced love in a lot of different ways. And so now I get to use that as my superpower to other people.
I love it. You talked about music being kind of the heart of your purpose. So how do you recommit to that purpose since it's been around for so long?
It actually, funny story. So 3 years ago, we went to an event in Austin, Texas. It actually was a worship leaders kind of retreat. And so the people from all over the country came to it. And we were actually, there was one session where we were praying, and this guy looked over at me. He said, when you were praying, like, I saw these notes coming off of you. And he said, I feel like when God created you, that like he sang you into existence. And that just blew my mind, because I'm like, that explains so much. I hear music. Have you watched the movie August Rush? August Rush, years ago. So this little kid, he hears music and everything. That's like me. I don't have it to that extent. That would probably drive people crazy. But like, I hear music in so many different ways. When people talk, when I look at them, even this painting that's on the wall that you guys can't see right now, but like I see it in everything. And so, I don't know. It's just like being able to hear it and see it all the time. Like I'm always coming up with songs. My wife and I have 3 little boys. And so we teach them a lot of things to music. Like there's a song, oh, you gotta be patient. Oh, you gotta be patient and wait a little while. So it's like we're teaching them how to find, remember things to music. So I think a lot of things I remember to music, but then also if I'm just being goofy, I'll just sing it out as opposed to saying it a lot of times.
Why does the world need music?
I like music is a universal language, whether it is music that is appealing to our ears or to, my wife and I talk about the indigenous sound a lot. So when you think of other countries, how sometimes when we hear world music, it doesn't sound natural to our ears, but it is very native to them. I think that it's a great means of expression. I believe when God created the world, when he said, let there be light, and there was light, it came out as a song and frequency, and that frequency is still going in the earth today. And we are like songs, and sometimes our songs are sad, and sometimes our songs are happy, and sometimes our songs are on beat, and sometimes our songs are off beat. So I feel like we're all like just walking music boxes.
I love that idea of a frequency, and most people don't realize that every cell is attuned to a frequency.
That's right.
The Earth is attuned to, I think it's like 5.5 like megahertz. So that idea that song is everywhere is so amazing.
Well, I want to talk about your journey. You know, I'm just thinking of this book from a previous guest, and it's the 10-year success story, right?
Wow.
And it's just like in anything, it takes time, but people don't normally see.
That's right.
They just see you like when you hit it.
Yeah.
They don't see all the work that went in, and you're just coming out of a 10-year journey and creating your album. Talk to me about that.
So the journey started 10 years ago. Originally, when I released my first EP, Mosaic, in 2008, my plan was to have a full Mosaic album and then go on to another album. But in 2009, a friend of mine who was helping me with my music, he and I had this falling out, and to this day, we still don't know what it was really about. But it was one of those situations where it's like, God told me, you need to go apologize. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I was like, so I'm like, rah, 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 rah. I didn't do anything. I don't need to apologize, blah, blah, blah. I, got over myself, and I did. And he didn't really receive it the way, you say, I'm sorry. A person's going to say, I'm sorry right back. It wasn't that situation. And so I got even more upset. And I was like, see, this is why I shouldn't have said anything, and blah, 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 blah. But here's the music part, about 2 a.m., I woke up and I started hearing these chords in my head. I don't normally write in the key of B minor, but I got up and I heard it, and I was like, I got to go to the piano and start playing. So I started playing it, and the chorus said, when it's tough, when it's unfair, that's when you love, that's when you love. Oh, when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, that's when you love, that's when you love. I was like, whoa, what just happened? And from about 2 to 4 a.m., I got the bulk of that song. And that song was one of the ones that helped launch this journey into the Real Love Project. I'm also very visual. And so there was this vision that I had I was at Woodstock. Woodstock was over, this open field, and I knew it was Woodstock, and there was a stage and there was a sign that had love like swaying in the wind. And I feel like God told me, like, you're going to start a love movement that is going to accomplish what Woodstock was supposed to do. And so I'm like, what does that even mean? And that was it. And so I started studying Woodstock and how it came about and the history of it. And then the parallel movement, the Jesus movement that happened also in the 60s, 70s. And so I'm studying all these different things. And I knew that, like, when you talk about love being a superpower, a friend of mine said that, like, I feel like you are a love warrior. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, your weapon is love. And so one of the songs that actually didn't make the album, but it's one that we probably release later, is called Love Is My Revenge. And so rather than revenge in terms of like, I'm going to stab you in the back and get you back for hurting me, I choose to turn the other cheek. I choose to forgive. I choose to, I don't have to be a fool about it, but like, I choose to love in spite, even if that love is not reciprocated back to me. So that's the journey of how these songs visually, musically, spiritually came about. And it took a long time because I had a lot of unforgiveness that I had to deal with. I had didn't realize a lot of self-hate that I needed to deal with. There's a song on the album called Love Yourself that talks about comparison issues and about how we compare ourselves to others. And that was a part of it. And then my wife and I actually co-wrote 6 of the songs. And she actually is, I would say, my other superpower, because she helped finish this album. Like, I had great ideas, but it needed something to round it out. So Courtney Orlando, who's a great friend of ours as well, is the producer for the album. And he helped like round it all together. And so Christia and I co-wrote these 6 songs that spoke about marriage and spoke about unforgiveness, but then also like celebrating, because originally the album was actually a lot darker than it is now. It started off in a very dark place, and I was like, I don't want an emo album. I don't want this to be the sad sack. But I was like, real love there are moments when like you're gonna go through pain and you're gonna go through heartache, but there are also moments where we need to celebrate. And coming out of a year of a pandemic, it was just like, we need something to celebrate. We need something to make people laugh again and love again and smile again. And so this album kind of covers the gamut.
Talk to me about the challenge of just the music business in general.
Yeah.
So now that it's out there, what do you do now?
So now that the music industry has changed once again, so for the last year, live shows and touring were shut down. And so creatives started finding new ways to reinvent themselves and present music again. And so I think I'm on the earlier cusp of this. Tyler and I, we've talked about from a digital perspective of like what it looks like to release an album and to have, get into algorithms and streams and all those things. But I think there is something to be also said about the live performance and the need for music to be in front of people again. And so there are some local shows that are starting to open up and I'm looking at also some regional things as well. But I think this is a message that has to get out in front of people. And along with that, we've been talking about, placements in terms of like some of these songs definitely are good for licensing. They're good for being a part of movies. And like even we were walking through Target the other day and we're like, did you hear that song playing? I'm like, no, I think that was us. Like we could hear what the world needs playing in Target. And so it's like finding those connections. So over this 10-year journey, there have been different people that I've met along the way that now we're revisiting those conversations of what does it look like now that this album is out? How do we connect with other artists? That's been another huge piece, relationship building and networking with other artists who are on a similar but like maybe slightly different pattern, and how do we help support one another in our careers moving forward?
I'd like to dial into something that you said, which is the lessons of love. Mm-hmm. Really what this album is about. Yeah. I think about shows like Black Love that are teaching you to love in a way that perhaps you hadn't been exposed to before. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is, talk to us about what did you learn about your love and how to love better in creating this album?
Love it. So one of the biggest pieces was that I was molested as a kid. I went through a lot of confusion and shame and guilt, and I hid it for so long because it's just like, if I say this out loud, then what are people going to think of me? What's going to become of me? And I actually lived in a bubble I believed the lie that I would never get married, that I would never have my own kids, that I would be just a godfather and that would be it. But I knew that was a contradiction in my heart. I knew that I was meant to be a husband and to raise kids, but I had to wrestle through what had been and what it seemed like was never going to be the reality. Mm-hmm. So the big part of that, I think, was finding other people that I could be vulnerable with to talk through the pain, because and especially we talk about this in the African-American community, it is not, going to counseling and therapy has been looked down upon for so many years. And so generationally, I feel like we have suffered generational trauma, and it's been passed down because these secrets have never been talked about. These things have never been, the rug has never been pulled back. The elephant has always been in the room and no one has talked about it. And so it's like, I had to start talking to the elephant. I had to pull back the rug and I had to go in the closet and pull out the skeletons and say, this is the stuff that's been here. And this is the stuff that's caused depression. This is the stuff that's been, maybe go through 2 attempted suicides. These are the things that have been the driving force. These are the lies that I've been believing. But what else? So we talk about faith. Faith gets real when it materializes in your life. So like for me, God has always been a part of my life, but the reality of that, I knew that God loved me on one of the days that I tried to kill myself. I was actually going to drive, and I was going to drive my car off of a cliff. I was driving and I was like, I heard this voice say, just take your hands off the wheel and everything will be okay. And I did. And for a split second, I opened my eyes, and I kid you not, I saw the wheel turn in the direction of the road. This was not me. This is not my knees on the road. This is like something, someone, God, Jesus took the hands of the wheel and guided the car. And I pulled over to the side. I'm shaking, I'm trembling. And the Lord told me, he was just like, I won't let you go. And so I said, if you won't let me go, then that means I have a purpose that's bigger than me. Like, what is this purpose? And part of being a love warrior is like, I'm supposed to look people in the eye and tell them that you matter, you're seen, you're loved, you're cared about. Music has been the what opens the door to that, but it's the conversations that happen afterwards. And so out of that process, like I've had to learn how to, even when the lies come up again, even when the thoughts try to come back and say, remember when you did this, remember you did that. It's like, oh no, yeah, that was me, but that is the old me. This new Kenny is alive, and like he has a great purpose. And it's been so cool because there have been so many people that I've had a chance to have conversations with who have dealt with so many of the same things. And they've said, I never thought I could talk about this. I never thought I could say this out loud. I never thought I'd get over that. And so they're able to identify with someone else who has walked that path.
It's so important to have testimony and story about things that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'd love to understand how you got to the place where you could speak about your trauma.
Yeah.
And perhaps inspire other people to similarly begin to go through a path of healing.
Yes. One person in particular who actually is a part of the album, our friend Greg Hand, who was the person that actually told me about his story and what he had been through. And he was the person that I felt like showed me his pain and showed me what that looks like. And I felt it gave me permission to say that. And actually the Lord told me to, just like, it's okay, you can talk about this now. Because I did not talk about it for so many years. And in that, not only did he share with me what he had gone through, he began to walk with me practically through the process of what it looks like to deal with negative, evil, dark, disgusting, perverted, weird thoughts and bring them to the light. Because when they stay hidden in the dark, that's where you're just overwhelmed. You're like, that little sheep that gets led off and the wolves can just attack. But he began to walk me through that process. And I began to have conversations with him that I had never had with anybody else of like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what do you think about that? And if I'm feeling this way today, what do I do with that feeling? And so it was a practical thing. And so now my wife and I, we've been able to have those very same conversations with other people and, invite them into our home to where it's like, it's a no judgment zone. Just like, this is where you are, and it's not us trying to fix you or change you, but I think it's giving people an opportunity to say that like, here's flesh and bone of what this looks like, regardless of whether it's, sexual situations or whether it's, just hate or I'm, feeling unloved, whatever it is, but giving them the space to like just share.
Yeah.
Wow. We could go on and on. But it's time for the lightning round.
It is time for the
Can you
lightning
believe it
round.
already?
Woo!
I know, right?
My gosh. All right. You ready?
Ready.
What do you want to let go of?
Oh man, I want to let go of, I think still there is some comparison issues that I've dealt with there. Just like, I wish my music would have come out sooner. I wish I was on this tour. I wish I had this. Yeah.
What do you spend too much time doing?
Overthinking.
What is a defining moment in your life and how did it impact you?
I thought about this yesterday. Tyler, you sent me a message that said, after I did the slam session here, I feel like the proverbial glass ceiling has been broken off of you. Ooh. And that really was like setting the cage bird free.
Wow. What is your perfect day?
Quiet. We have 3 little boys who are all under 6, 5, and 2. So like God. Some quiet. And actually, I love bookstores. I love, just the whole vibe of the bookstore, coffee house vibe. So just being in that environment. Yeah.
All right. Last question.
Yeah.
What did you learn from your biggest regret?
Oh, wow. I learned that even if you didn't do it right, you can still be forgiven. You can still move forward.
Wow. Such a great conversation. And how can people get in touch with you? How can they hear the album?
Yes.
How can they follow you on social? Give us all of the details and
all
the handles.
Of the deets. Okay, so KennyDeShields.com. I'm on Instagram as Kenny DeShields, Twitter, Kenny DeShields. The album is on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all those places. So feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment, all the above.
Let's make it happen.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die.